Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Para Bellum Spotlight. I'm joined once again by Konstantinos.
Hello, everyone.
He's going to be taking us through a little look at Timoleon the Lion. There are some who think he is a great shaman.
Well, he's an old shaman.
Well, yes, he does wake up and decide that the world needs to be reinvented in an older image.
Not necessarily older. I think that's kind of the interesting thing with Timoleon, that he did wake up in a very different world from the one he slumbered some time ago. Let's not be specific. Some time ago. And he's struggling to adapt, but I think that it becomes evident if through his story that it's not that he's unwilling to adapt, is that he's ready to accept adaptations that make sense and will help in the way that he perceives as where they should go anyway. But so it is an interesting on a personal level, because he seems like a very detached, and he's arguably one of the most powerful characters we had in the Living World available, even though that actual power rarely comes into play. But it is, I think it makes it interesting and more human that even this very powerful shaman that slumbered for potentially centuries and then woke up and immediately started stirring the pot, he stumbles as he sees things that he did not expect to see. That he fell asleep during a world that was very cut and dry. We are the Nords and we are Mannheim. They are the 100 Kingdoms, the Fire Children, descendants of the children of Surtur. So we fight. And he sees that this is no longer the case, for instance. He notices and he actually meets a queen that is with half her heart belongs to the kingdoms, being one of the 100 Kingdoms. But she also observes the customs and even laws of the Nordic things. So I think it is interesting for him in a way that his name also implies that he's not exactly native, possibly. So
it's there is that, but yeah, there's an interesting dynamic between his first awakening, and I suppose it's the they often refer to countries having hard power and soft power, and it's military might, and then it's how does the world see that country and how much influence can they apply without military might as well. And it's almost like that dichotomy. He wakes up and the first thing he does is use his strength, use his power, because he realizes he needs to get involved quickly, and the fastest way to do that is to force somebody else's hand and put them in a position where he can exploit his power. But then subsequent to that, there is the more subtle both manipulation or even redefining what some of the encounters that he takes part in, what they mean to people around him. The final sort of embrace. It's seen as a sort of a power play by one side, and he goes, "Yeah, well, I'll do that, but first I'm going to set up in everybody's mind, everybody who's watching, that it doesn't mean what they think it means. It means this. It means nothing at all. It's just a hug. It's just an embrace. Don't worry about it. We can all move on with our lives."
I think that I'm very pleased with how his story panned out in the end, based on the choices, because it allowed on a very personal level to go full circle, kind of. So one of the people he first saw after he awakened was this Volva, who he didn't even register much at the time. And after he brought about mayhem in a longhouse, taking down a jarl, creating a new legend in an instant by freezing someone's cut off hand and making it work with ice, he immediately makes an announcement, that is true, disregarding one of the players that was there, only for in the very end, when he finally reaches the High King's stable and he's ready to confront the High King on a personal level, he sees that same person waiting there. And this is something that I wanted to showcase through Timoleon that he's very distant in many ways from the world. And I think that the other characters around him treat him as such. And many try to tell him, come closer, but others just dismiss him because, like, for instance, Astrid, the evolved in question, which tells that, yeah, you say you don't want us to bring the gods. Why do we worship the gods? What are you? Like compared to the rest of us, what are you? You are practically a god. So I think I thought it very important to showcase that there is the shaman Timoleon, the great shaman Timoleon, a legend already when he wakes up, but also a person that kind of now and then we get glimpses of a more personal side. And I think one of the reasons he's so mild in his last encounter, which is with Astrid, is because he realizes exactly what you said, that his grand display of power touched people's lives personally. And I think that when people are confronted with that, at least it gives them pause. Doesn't mean people change the whole philosophy about how they should act. I think he's too old maybe to learn new tricks, but at least it gives a pause.
Yeah,
it gives pause, and that kind of human aspect is very interesting and appealing, I think, to Timoleon for me.
Yeah, I mean, even his encounter with the Queen then, Island, the fact that he sees the necessity of reaching out beyond the lands of the Nords and bridging that gap and using alliances, and I get the impression that perhaps if things had been a different way around, he may not have been as quick to make alliances outside of the Nordic people, but he sees the necessity in the current age that it's needed to progress his own aims and keep the Nordic people and Mannheim together.
That is very true. I think it touches what we said very early, that he is confronted with a new world. Of course, nothing is new under the sun in a way. So, when he is presented with the possibility, there is another way. There's not just brute force. Control money. Money makes things done.
Yeah.
He's not unfamiliar with that idea. It is obvious because that is kind of a constant.
Yeah.
But what intrigues him, I think, and I'm going to make, a bit of a parenthesis here, kind of put it in brackets, a small kind of side note. It is very interesting to talk about the Living World characters and doing these recaps as we closed off the first chapter, because to a certain degree, I am called to interpret choices that our audience did, our community did, for those characters from the point of view of the character. So I need to interpret different choices that may seem drastically different between them sometimes, which can be challenging. But to be honest, I kind of enjoy this challenge. But you always kind of need to interpret them through the lens of the specific character, and that, I think, dynamic makes it very interesting. A very interesting way to discuss with our players and our community and our voters on the Living World. So what I say, most of the stuff I mentioned now are kind of interpretations that I make as the writer of Timoleon about the choices that other people made for this character that I write about.
Well, that's an interesting thing about the Living World. There is a character portrait for Timoleon, which is one of the first times he sort of appears, and people can go and have a look at that. And it explains, where he comes from. And reading that, you get this stern, almost unbending idea of a man, somebody who wouldn't bow to the changes around him and stands firm and rigid against it. Flash forward X number of years, he wakes up, different world, and then the shaping of him comes from the choices that the community have made, which makes it takes him from being I wouldn't say a two-dimensional character, but it gives life, I suppose, is the best way of putting it, and a certain amount of impetus from the audience that they just direct and steer where he is going to go and what choices he's going to make in the future, which is one of the things I love about the Living World. It's interactive to a great degree, and people can make their voices heard and change, if not the outcomes specifically, then how people are getting there and the routes they take towards it.
I think you just honestly, that's exactly the point, that we see different interpretations of characters that we have forged. And those are, I think, saying different interpretations is kind of wrong. I think it's like we see an evolution of characters that obviously in their background they were specific, but especially in Timoleon's case, where he wakes up in a new world, we see that, yes, he was rich, and he still is. Like, he never backs down. He's ready to adapt to achieve what he wants to do, but he never backs down. He never considers, should I just never go to the high? No, he will go to the high table. He's just learning what is the best way in this new world to achieve what he's already set out to do. Yeah. And there is a big question mark about what it is that he set out to do. He, especially near the end, he speaks of an upcoming war, something that his shamanic powers possibly allow him to foresee. But even though that he takes as a given, he has still not decided what is the best way to take the Nords. But I know one thing for certain: we need to pick a side. We need to decide who we will be. Because if we don't know who we are, we cannot face a threat, because it's inevitable that we will face each other. It's a very common history with the Nords. Well, with the 100 Kingdoms and with everyone, really, if we're honest. But so what he's trying to do right now is, no. We need to make the Nords, not this captain, that tribe, that tribe. We need to come up with an identity that if not everyone embraces, then at least understands. Yeah, so that is his goal. He has not stirred from it one bit. He has not taken a step back. He has taken detours that he thinks are beneficial to that cause, though.
Yeah, it's a fascinating little insight and a closing of that chapter of the Living World. If people are interested in finding out more, they can obviously go to the Para Bellum website, have a look at the actual spotlight, and then they can go back and browse through the Living World as well and read the previous chapters for Timoleon and see where he came from and how he got to where he is as well.
I strongly recommend that, especially as we enter the next phase of the Living World. You will see that our format will change a little. We will take a step back from individual characters and go more to storylines, that their narrative is based on decisions from multiple characters from the first phase, book, or chapter, whatever you want to call it. We haven't decided yet. Possibly book. This will be book or prelude, the whole thing. We'll see. But, so now we'll get to see more stories that involve these characters, and most of all, they involve these characters' decisions and the repercussions from what they decided when they did.
Fantastic stuff. Well, there you go, folks. If you've any questions, please drop them below. Otherwise, hop over to Para Bellum and check out Timoleon and his storyline. Until next time, bye-bye.
Go ahead and check out our other content on screen now. And while you're at it, why not hit subscribe and remember to ding our dong. Go on, you know you want to click it. Go on.